Keel.
Beautiful.
Oh, let's see if my GPS can get me there up to the platform here. It's going to be hard, but I think I can make it. Whoa. So, GPS Insights. That's the title of my talk today. How many people use their GPS? Who doesn't use their GPS? You just have a nose for where you want to go, and you get there. You ask people, that's a good way. I remember I used to be a real estate broker, and we had these things called Thomas Brothers maps. Does anybody remember those? Oh my gosh, page after page, and you could get so far, and then you had to go to the next page. So a lot of stopping, using phone booths, because we didn't have cell phones, eh? Kind of like this little guy here. Kind of like it. So on the back table, I'm just going to say this now while I'm remembering, are a lot of ideas for you to create your own personal GPS. So lots of words for G, lots of words for P, and lots of words for F. So if you want to pick one up, you can. Because I think in different times our GPS, our inner GPS can be stated differently. Let's just put it that way. So I was thinking about guidance, you know, the times that we find ourselves needing guidance. And sometimes we're really clear, there's multiple choices that we have, and we have to choose something and take action in some way. So that's a very clear time. Sometimes it could be we have a transition in our life, you know, people who are retiring, or maybe we're moving and we have to figure out where we're going to go, which box to pack first. Maybe there's something emotional that's happening for us in our life. You know, we're thinking about making a decision in a relationship, to enter into one or to leave one, or to somehow make a shift in terms of how we relate to some individual person. These are all times when we're looking for guidance to get clarity, to take the next step in our life. Sometimes it's a question of, should I do it now, or which path I should take? Am I relating to anyone? Have you had this kind of experience of needing, you need some guidance? But there are other times in our life when we kind of feel like we lost the signal. The guidance, we're like, okay, I know I'm wandering, I'm confused, and we don't even know what we need guidance on. We don't know what we need to make a decision about. Has anybody ever felt that way? Yeah. I think in the world right now that's a big piece of what's going on. I know I hear it a lot in my coaching clients. There's this sense of overwhelm. And when we're in that place of so much information and so many possibilities, a lot of times that sense of, you know, I've kind of lost my way here, becomes a key for us. And it can be something that can happen because we're exhausted from too many things that we're doing. We're physically exhausted, we're emotionally exhausted. We can also feel a sense of kind of spiritual dryness. And you know what I mean when I say that? Like there's this quality that I'm not quite able to connect. It's like I'm a little bit on a desert. It's kind of like in our GPS when you're driving along and all of a sudden you don't have any connection. They call it a dead zone. They call it a signal desert. You know, and I think sometimes we can have that kind of sense of disconnection from spirit in our life. And when that happens, it's really, really challenging for us to really find guidance. So it can be either a time when we're really at a crossroads in our life and we can have clarity that we do need to make a decision, or it can be a time when we just sort of feel disconnected. In both cases, we need to really reevaluate what our GPS is, what it is that's going on for us that's going to help us get to clarity, get to where we want to be and go in our life. There's so many different ways we could talk about GPS, and I think you'll have fun if you pick up my sheet to see what works for you right now. But I was thinking one could be the idea of being grounded in sacred presence, being God provides the next steps. I like that one a lot. How about guidance on the path, and I surrender? There's some interesting ones. Or God, please save me. That's another one. Also, God's plan is sacred. God's plan is special. There's so many different ways that we can really kind of wrap our heads around what it means to have our own inner GPS. And I think it's really important for us to anchor all of that in something that is not so visible when we're looking at our phone or when we're in our car. You know, how our GPS works is because there's satellite, right? And we can't see the satellite, but we trust that it's there when we go onto our system, right? And that is a key to this whole understanding of how the inner GPS works for us, because we have a satellite too, don't we? We have that anchor into the presence and the power of spirit, of the divine, of source, of your higher power, however you want to language it. And I love a quote by Eric Butterworth, who was a wonderful teacher for us. He's written so many incredible books. He was a unity minister in Lincoln Center in New York City for many years, had a huge congregation. He had his own radio program, so he was very much out there. And he said, faith is not believing that God can. It is knowing that God is. Faith is not believing that God can. It is knowing that God is. And that's part of our teaching, isn't it? The one presence and one power. We say every Sunday, there's one presence and one power. What do we also say? That presence and power dwells within each one of us. And I was reading, I think it was a couple of days ago in the Daily Word, and there was a sentence that came out for me in the very end of this particular Daily Word, and they said, trusting that God is with and within me. I love that idea, to be aware that God is always with me, but also within me. And this is where this idea that we have a faith-filled understanding of the presence and power of that satellite that's always there, and that satellite is connected to who we are, even if it feels like there's a dead zone, even if it feels like we're driving through a tunnel. That satellite, that divine presence is always beaming down and connecting deeply within each one of us, who we are. Such a powerful, powerful teaching. Charles Fillmore said this. He said, divine mind knows the way for the fulfillment of every desire. And I thought, that reminds me too about my GPS knows the way, even when I don't know the way. And how many times is that one of the things that happens in my life? So just looking at the whole idea of a GPS and kind of seeing what we need to do in order to make this connection to higher power, to source, to the signal that's there, the first thing we need to do is know where we are, right? Your GPS can't tell you how to get there unless it knows where you're starting from. And I think this is a really important thing for us to be aware of, because at some level it reminds us of being really authentic with ourselves, being willing to be honestly anchored into where we are, and where we are not in the sense of physicality of where we are, but where we are spiritually, where we are emotionally. No matter what it is, what is our destination, we have to come into an awareness of where we are. Are we in a place of calm? Are we in a place of overwhelm? Are we in a place of disconnection and anger? Where are we when we're starting this connection and anchoring in more deeply to what it is we want guidance for in our life? So we look at that. Spirit doesn't really care where we are. You know, your GPS doesn't go, oh, well, you're not supposed to be there right now. I'm sorry, but I can't direct you, right? God doesn't care where you are, what quality of being that you are in the moment, but really we're required to tune in to know what that is. And from that awareness and from that place in our life, we get to select, what's my destination? And again, destination doesn't mean the place necessarily. It could be that we're wanting guidance to help us find a new job, for instance. But it might also be a quality of soul that we're looking for. We might be looking for more peace in our life. We might be looking for a connection in a relationship with someone that has been broken, that we feel like we need to reconnect there. There are qualities of soul that become the destination that this GPS can help and guide us into. So we need to know where we are, and we need to know basically where we're headed. It can be an intention that we hold, or a simple focus that we hold. Examples might be, I want more guidance on the purpose that I came here, God. Or I want more guidance on how to support the healing in my physical body. Or I want more guidance on how I can support my child, my daughter, in doing what it is she wants to do. There's so many different ways that emotionally we can ask the presence and power of Source, of Divine, to support us and to be open to receive. One of the things that happens, however, when we're headed along the road, and anybody's had this before, sometimes the traffic in front of us is stopped. You ever get in, you're looking in your car, and all of a sudden the line is totally red. You're like, uh-oh. And sometimes your GPS will just recalibrate for you and take you off in another direction that you didn't know that route, but it's going to take you around the problem that's there, give you a detour, and get you where, it's always going to get you where you want to go, but it may take you on a circuitous route that you didn't have in your own mind. And this is something that I think for most of us happens all the time in our life. We might think we're taking a wrong turn, but things happen for a certain reason. We might find delays, just like we find a delay when we're sitting in our car and traffic has totally stopped and we're not getting anywhere. We have an opportunity to stay connected to Spirit in that moment, right? Yeah. We also sometimes get totally rerouted, and I was thinking about kind of some of the examples of things like that in my own life and just in the life of people that I know. This idea of thinking that we have taken the wrong turn. Have you ever had that experience in your life where you thought, you're headed in this direction, but something after a certain, maybe a number of days or weeks, or even for some people years, you realize this is not it. I was talking to a woman that in my neighborhood, and all the people in my neighborhood are about 30 years younger than I am. So she was in a job for, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years, and she used to complain to me about how much she didn't like her job and really wanted another job. But she wasn't doing anything about getting another job, sort of getting a resume together all the time, and I would see her and say, are you looking? Well, she's looking, but looking wasn't really getting her anywhere. And about maybe a month and a half ago, she called me up and she said, you're not going to believe it. She started this job as a receptionist, and her company now is promoting her to a vice president, which sounded like really great, right? But all this time she's been talking about how much she doesn't like this job. So, yay, I'm a vice president in a job I don't really like. So she was feeling like, I don't know, know how we can get pulled by something? Because a raise and a title, seduced by all of that. Well, this happened, and then a week later, a friend introduced her to somebody who got her on the role of interviewing for a job, and all of a sudden last week she got a job offer, and her boss said, I'm quitting, and I'm starting my own company, so I want you to work with me. And all of a sudden she went from being on the road for 8 years in a job she didn't really like, to having a new title as vice president, a raise, and an offer from another company, from 2 other people for a job. It was like, I thought I took a wrong turn there with that job, but something, like the universe is giving me opportunities. We come in that experience, don't we, sometimes, where you're just going along for a long time, and all of a sudden, the universe comes in and says, well, wait a minute, we know who you are. These are opportunities that you could choose from. So that's kind of what happens often in our life, isn't it? We think it's a wrong turn, but we get to come around the corner and see, maybe all those years I spent in this job made me absolutely prepared for the next thing in my life. Any of you ever had that kind of experience? Yeah. Raise my hand. I used to be a real estate broker, and then I became a minister, and I always tried to figure out, how did that work? But I decided I used to be helping people find their physical home, and now I help people find their spiritual home. So that kind of worked for me, Very different worlds, however. But still Sunday, open house. Oh, I hated that, the signs. Anyway, one of the other things that can happen when we're on the journey and looking for guidance is that we can have a delay. Anybody ever have a delay? You think something's supposed to happen in a certain period of time. The healing is supposed to happen in 12 weeks, right? You're supposed to be totally healed, and it hasn't quite happened. What's going on? Sometimes we pray for something. My idea of when it should happen doesn't quite happen. But oftentimes, what's going on when we have these delays is we're being prepared for something else in our life. There's something else that's emerging through the presence and power of our connection to Spirit that allows us to move in maybe a different direction, or maybe just be ready for the next thing that's going to come up in our life. Maybe there's a new relationship that's happening, or maybe someone else needs our support, and we've been given what we need to be able to support that person. So sometimes it's a wrong turn that takes us in a completely different direction. Sometimes it's just kind of a timing thing, that there's a delay, but it's preparing us for something bigger. The other thing that can happen is we can get rerouted. Have you ever been rerouted? Many of us get rerouted by interesting experiences, and others of us get rerouted by, I'm looking at Marilyn. Marilyn got rerouted Easter Sunday a couple years ago when she had a really bad fall. That rerouted her life. Anytime we have any kind of serious accident, that reroutes our life in a very abrupt way. What else can reroute our life? A change in our health. A retirement can reroute our life. A death in the family, a shift in the family can reroute our life. Emotionally we're moving in one direction, then all of a sudden we're having to deal with massive grief in our life. Or we become a caregiver for someone, and things have to shift and change. It's part of what happens in life, and we need to really have this understanding that when these kind of events happen for us, it's not because Spirit has abandoned us in any way. We're still on that same journey, but we're being given things, and the old saying, God does not give us anything that we can't handle. We think we can't, maybe, but we're always given what we need to take care of the things that are given to us to be and to do and to explore in the world. So powerful. So I love this idea of spiritual guidance and really understanding how important it is for us to stay connected to the signal. It's so important for us to stay connected. And how do we do that? We do that through a time of meditation, maybe every morning, to create that sacred space for ourselves, to be able to connect. Maybe we do it through prayer with a prayer partner, or we listen to prayers, we open ourselves up every day and have that communication. Remember that, trusting that Spirit, that God is with me and within me. Having that friendship relationship with the divine as a partner on the journey, with and within all the time. Another way that we really connect in with the presence and power is by allowing silence and stillness to be part of our daily experience. So important for us to really bask in that field of limitless possibility, in the presence and power of the divine. You know, I love the story that Charles Fillmore used to sit in the living room in his house 2 hours in the stillness every day. And his little granddaughter, Rosalie, she would come in with her friends, and they'd walk into the living room and her friends kind of like, who's this guy? Oh, that's just Granddad. He sits there every afternoon. But that was how Charles Fillmore connected so incredibly powerfully with the presence and power of the divine. That's how the whole universal, the metaphysical dictionary was basically came from his time of connecting in with Spirit. And we have the benefit of that today. So much guidance, so much spiritual insight comes to us when we're able to be in that place of stillness and quiet. Maybe for some of us it's being in nature, being out and being in that field where literally the vibration of life is embedded in the redwoods, for instance, being up in the redwoods, how you feel that sense of being connected to all life, to be part of that field of oneness. We can get deep, deep guidance from that kind of a connection in our life. And for some of us, it's community, and I think right now in the time we're living in, there's probably more of a sense of loneliness in the world than there ever has been before. We're connected virtually to people, but there's a deep sense of loneliness. People are not in community the way we used to be in community with one another. And so it's really important for us to kind of find what's my attunement? How do I align? How do I bring my awareness to that divine signal, that presence of the divine, that sacred place, that presence, that God presence that is ever sacred? So just invite you to be aware of all of these things. And when you're in those places in your own life, whether it's a decision that you know you need to make, or whether it's something that kind of goes awry and you find yourself in a place of feeling disconnected. I had this experience, and I wasn't really going to share about this, but I was driving and I thought, I can feel how I've had this experience in my own life. A couple of weeks ago, in the middle of the night, Roy came running in. I was asleep. And he said, the house is all full of smoke. And so I got up and I called the fire department, and 4 hunky firemen showed up. I mean, they really were big, hunky guys. I'm like, you guys are really big. Anyway, they couldn't find where the fire was. And so they left the house going, I'm really sorry, ma'am, but it looks like the smoke is leaving, but we can't find where your fire was, which is not really reassuring, needless to say. Anyway, it smelled like a plasticky thing. Well, it turns out that it was a plug in Roy's, I want to call it his library, because it's not really his office. It's completely covered with probably 1,000 books, wall to wall, floor to ceiling, all books. And that was where the fire was. It was a plug behind a bookshelf that had melted. And it melted so far that eventually it caught on fire. So we got the thing, we moved 1,000 books. My house now has piles of books in the living room, books in the hall, boxes of books on the deck, And there's still like thousands of books in his office still, but at least where the plugs are, there are no books. And I realized how totally discombobulated I felt about this. And then Roy hurt his hip, so he can't move books. So I get to move books. And I realized I'm totally feeling like confused in my life. I was doing this, and then all of a sudden, this happened. And my kids are hysterical. Mom, you could have burned down, you know. And I realized I just have to go to God on this one. I just have to sit, because I don't need to rearrange my whole house. I don't need to, you know, move. Well, those are options, right? Old house, maybe I don't want to have to fix the whole house up. But I realize how easy it is for us to have something that kind of grows, and we get kind of lost in what is, this is what's mine to do. And boy, I can't tell you how grateful I felt that what mine to do was to talk to you about a GPS. And that I'd planned that over a month ago. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God, that I can spend, you know, a couple of days just focusing on what does it mean to be guided, and how easy it is to get kind of pulled off into the overwhelm. And when I get overwhelmed, I'm not at my best. I don't know about you, but I'm not making my wisest choices. Anyway, I think this is something for us to be mindful of in our lives, just this sense about how important it is for us to know that satellite is there all the time, even when we're, you know, driving through a tunnel and we don't think we can hear it or see it. It's there all the time, and that's just the time we need to stop, you know, and do what's ours to do. Maybe for some of you it's take a hike in the woods. Maybe for someone else it's, you know, phone a friend, have a conversation with somebody heart to heart. Maybe it's sitting outside and just meditating with the sun on your body. Maybe it's reading something sacred. Maybe it's just listening and being present. Or maybe you just need to eat chocolate and go to the movies. You know, I mean, sometimes we just need that kind of like, need to break it out.
Maybe you're just moving books.
Yeah, there you go. So let's just take a break right now, and I'm going to turn off some lights. Yeah, thanks, Guy. So just invite us to close our eyes. Take a couple nice deep breaths, feeling the grace of having a body right now. And know that guidance isn't about controlling. It's not about controlling our future. It's just about being present so that we can know what is our next step, moment to moment. Not the whole journey. We don't need to know how to get to New York. We might just need to know how to get to Rohnert Park. So just to take that next step. And for all of us, it means finding that deeper connection to the presence and the power of the divine. So I invite you right now to just feel into your own life. Maybe it's about asking if it doesn't feel right now that you're connected. The divine shows up as grace flowing to and through us in our life. It shows up when we feel centered and grounded, when we feel aligned with the moment. There's a quality of gentleness. Sometimes there's almost just a tiny whisper that we can hear, or a deep feeling inside that allows us to trust that the presence, that God is both with and within us. Take a moment right now and feel into your heart, bringing in the presence as you know it, that living spirit. And if there's a particular area in your life that is seeking direction or guidance, maybe even a focus or an intention, open yourself to receive from this powerful presence, this sacredness. Maybe you'll be guided. Maybe a path will be revealed, a sign, a signal, a step. Maybe the goodness of God is inviting you to be patient and still. And always there is gratitude. Gratitude for the peace of the soul. Gratitude for peace and stillness in this sanctuary. Gratitude for the promise of spirit as we slow down and breathe. And gently, as you feel guided, you could bring your attention back to the breath, giving thanks to this powerful divine presence, the God with and within. And gently, as you are ready, you could come back to your body and slowly open your eyes and come back to our room together.